everybody, and welcome to Thursday night Johnny Small Train Talk Show. I want to say go to YouTubeMallBuilders.com. There you can check schedules for the shows. The Tuesday, Wednesday shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And the Thursday show, obviously, is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. We did have a cancellation this week on Tuesday. Ralph was unable to do the show because of family commitments, but that's okay. Family comes first. His show will be back next month, same day, same time. And let's see, what else do we have tonight? Well, this is the end of the month. In fact, this is the last show of the month, and then we'll start out next month with the Arduino show next Wednesday, which will be at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. So, with that said, let's get over here and see who's who and what's what. We got a few of them coming in on the chat. Hey, we got Speak of the Devil. We got Chris, MRL Trains, Brian W., Mark, Greg, Stu, Michael. Ron's Trains and Things just popped in. Over on the panel, we got Mr. Jim, Lloyd, and Andy over here. So, hey, Ari just popped in. How you doing, Ari? Andy, Greg said you need a haircut. You're looking a little hippie.
Yeah, that's the plan. I'm out of town this weekend, so I'll get a haircut. I've been out of town until about an hour ago, too, so.
Yeah. Hey.
Hard to get time for it. That's why I normally cover it up with a hat.
Yeah.
Hey, I understand.
That's right.
I'm right there with you, pal.
Man, I this time around, I keep doing that. In the winter, I'm bad for it anyway. I'm bad. Now, in the summertime, I used to have longer hair, but in the summer, man, it gets to me. I don't know how I ever tolerated stuff.
I think my thing is this. For years, I had a neighbor who cut hair, and she cut my whole family's hair for free. We were just friends and did that. And I'm too cheap to spend what they want for a haircut every 3 weeks. I can't do that. So,
well, I just have a hard time finding the time and the
that too.
What I'll do is I'll wait for the $5.99 haircut sale at Great Clips.
There you go.
And when they kind of go for a lot longer distance in between that special, it kind of shows.
Yeah.
Hey, I had a mullet back in the 80s when mullets were like not redneck. And there have been times when I have threatened if it wasn't for the stigma that went with that today,
I remember that. I'll threaten that with my business partner tomorrow. I'm getting it cut, but just on the sides. I believe this.
Let it grow in the back.
Yeah, Stu said he hadn't cut his hair in 6 years.
I went a long time. I went 10 years, and I had it cut 3 times, or trimmed 3 times. So I can do it, but not these days, man. I am too old, too gray. My hobbies and interests are not aligned in the same way, and it's a professional penalty, man. For every inch of hair I cut off, $10,000 a year income went up. So it's tough in the Midwest.
And not only that, but long hair isn't cool anymore when you're bald on top. when you don't have it here, having it here doesn't help.
But it doesn't. So model railroader, a bunch of hippie long hair model railroaders. It's not a real common thing in our community.
No.
Yeah, Curtis.
Nor is it in ours.
Curtis just came in. He said he just went and got him some of those lamb shears and gave himself a buzz cut.
Yeah, I got way too lumpy a head or something. It either all the braid mass either pushes it out, or it's hollow in there, and it's kind of there's something in that. I'm not good with shaved head, man.
I tried shaving my head once, and I had the goatee at the time. And I thought I'd look like Patrick Stewart, and I looked exactly like Jesse Ventura. And that's when he was governor of Minnesota, and I couldn't go out in public for like 2 months. It's just like It's not a good thing.
All right, let's see. Michael's got a question here. He says, what do you think of the MTH crossing gates plug-and-play system? Anybody seen
I have to
those
look
yet?
that up.
I haven't seen them.
I haven't either. Let's go check these out. I knew BLMA had a pretty nice set that I've used.
All right, while you're looking that up, Sam, yes, you can come in on the panel. So just pop right on in if you want to. That's Sam Cool.
Hey, young Sam.
Hi to Bob.
Yeah, Bob just joined us.
What's up, Bob?
And while Andy's doing his little research work, I want to see if this will work out. Y'all can feel free to talk over the top because there is no sound. It's just a little something to watch, I guess, if we get a little dry on subjects. Let me get my screen shared to work so everybody can see this. Uh-oh. That didn't work out, did it? There it goes. It's just some clips I went through real quick tonight and put together. Shows I used Gorilla Glue.
Yeah, wood glue.
Yeah, wood glue. Well, later on I used Aleene's tacky glue too. This is a combination of wood and cardboard.
Yeah, good deal. Yeah, the wood glue has a moisture. Sometimes can have a moisture public paper. So Aleene's is better for that because that consistency.
But I have no idea of who made that kit or what. I started that a long time ago and never finished it. I got too involved with all this other stuff. Never got a chance to finish. I just happened to come across these clips here, so I said, what the heck, I just put a bunch of them together. Cut out a lot of it, and I figured, well, maybe I'll come up with a 15-minute video, and so far it's already 25 minutes long.
I feel your pain, man.
Yeah, well, I mean, I could actually cut this thing down some more and do a better job of editing, but this is, 1 hour rush job.
That's what they call editing.
Yeah, that's a 1 hour rush job here.
Ron, do you have a Ron's Trains and Thing coffee mug that I just saw you sip out of?
Sure do.
That's awesome.
I know where you can get one. Email me.
I know a guy that knows a guy.
I know a guy who knows a guy. That's right.
Yeah, 5 easy payments of $89.95.
No, you just made it sound cheap.
Not this big.
Yeah, I ordered a few of these. I'll never do it again. Not the way I did it anyway. I ordered them from one of these, places you can get them, cheap online. And A, unless you order 1,000, they're a little expensive. And B, when you order 2 dozen and they arrive and a third of them are broken, it's just not ideal. But I got them because I gave them away in my contest, and also because I give them away to like my Patreon supporters and things. So I didn't need very many. I just needed a few for that purpose anyway.
Have you looked at Cafe Press? They're like the biggest. I forget what they call that, material marketing, but that's not exactly right. There's actually a term for that type of stuff. That ancillary things like mouse pads and stuff. Cafe Press huge all over the country, and I've had some friends that did IT work for them. A guy was head of IT for one of their departments, but they do a certain style of stuff. But most of the YouTube guys, the Casey Neistat and those guys, they use another service. You just go put your content and media in there. It sets up a store and everything for you. Somebody goes and buys a mouse pad for $20, and they send you $5 of it. You don't make as much, but you don't have to fool with any part of it, shipping or otherwise. You just set it up. People can get stuff, and you'll make a few dollars to help support your project.
And if I do, like I've done some T-shirts, and the T-shirts I've done through a local person because I could not possibly get them cheaper than I could have through somebody that I know.
Sure.
But it's also a royal pain. If I were to do like T-shirts or something like that going forward, seriously, that's what I would do. One of those services that drop ships it for you and sends you a royalty. That's really the only way to go for something like that.
Absolutely.
I never had any intention of becoming real serious about selling T-shirts or coffee mugs. It was just kind of I got them for another purpose, and I sold a couple because a few people wanted them. So
it's a little side benefit to what you're doing. It'll help support it slightly. Right. Most importantly, people want those things, and you get a little miniature kickback, mini kickback from it as an effort for your trouble of doing everything you do. It's not substantial. I mean, some of the big YouTubers probably merch for that stuff. For some of the really big guys, the PewDiePies that have 50 million subscribers, stuff like that, they're turning millions of dollars for merchandise. No joke aside, they literally. But in the market in our hobby, the numbers are going to be quite low.
Right. Yeah, let's go over and find out what happened to Sam Cool.
That looked cool. That's good video. Sorry. Oh, those MTH gates are really interesting. I think they would be great for a mass quantity of people. I'm a little finicky. First, they're a modern era gate. No problem. But if you're going to, in my opinion, if you're going to do gates, the modern gates work in a certain particular way, and you can't recreate that with a sensor on either side. You've got to detect the travel of train. If you leave the gates down for a long time after the train clears till it clears that second sensor. So you've got to have it trip this far sensor, and if it hasn't got to the sensor close to the road within a certain amount of time, you got to let the gates back up. And as soon as it clears the road, there should be a sensor right there on either side of the road. As soon as it clears that sensor, the gates need to come back up. So you've got to detect motion of travel. You can do that with a Inch International system with 4 sensors, or you can do it with an Arduino, and there's code for it already on the net. But that's my only constraint is that 2 sensor problem.
Yeah,
2 versus 4.
Hang on a second. Sam Cool's having a little problem here.
See, need a link? I'll get him one.
Yeah, Sam, if you go to the post, I've got it posted on G Plus and YouTube Mall Builders. It's also on Facebook at YouTube Mall Builders. Go to the post. Both of those are pinned at the top. And down at the bottom of the posting is the links. One says panel link. They'll bring you in here to the show panel. But it's the link is appear, APPER.IN/YTMB-LIVE. That's the link to come in here on the panel. Well, I tell you what, can you throw that up there? Well, here, or can we not do?
You could drop a link since you're logged in. You can drop a link. I have to do it with the parentheses, period, T period.
Oh well, let me do the.
Yeah, it'll let you drop a link if you're logged in, or if anybody that's a moderator is logged in, they can drop a link in the chat.
Oh.
Yeah, not a moderator. I'm more conservator.
Hey!
Hey, man. What's up, Sam?
Hi, Sam.
How you doing?
Hi, Sam.
So, glad to be on the panel. I've, never done this before. I'm so hyped.
A movie star. Movie star. It's like wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's got the right name. It's got the right title.
Titles matter.
Mm-hmm.
so we were talking on the what do you call it? The live
Chat.
chat thing, yeah. So my track plan is it's mirrored like that. Well, kind of. I think. Actually, it goes like that. It's mirrored, so everything we build is upside down and backwards.
Oh yeah, like Australians do. I understand it.
Well, this is what it actually looks like. This is the mirrored picture. So, down here, let's see if I can get it closer. Down here, where my switches are, I ran into a problem that my number 6 switches do not really work because of the angle at which this yard is at, or these switches are, like right here. This angle right here is actually, I can screen share it. Hold on.
Yeah, that'd be better. That'd look a lot better. Are you talking about the yard ladder? Is that where you're having a problem? Yeah. Have you, by chance, well, 2 questions. Which turnouts are you using? Which brand?
Walthers, and I have 4 Walthers, and I have, I'm using Fast Tracks for the next.
Awesome. Good deal. Well, by chance.
Yeah. So I can go back to, whoops, hold on. There. So can you see my mouse?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So right here, these switches are at a very deep or steep. It's at a steep angle. And keep in mind now that this plan is the opposite way. So the way it is actually built is upside down and backwards. So these, instead of this being a right hand and all left hands, this is a left hand and all right hands. So this is at an angle like that. And my number 6 switches do not provide an angle like that. When I line them up like they're supposed to be, they don't have that correct angle.
So there's a couple constraints. One, you're probably going to want to fix number 6s because that's what you have. However, by chance, and anybody listening, anybody that's building a yard system should definitely take a look at the yard ladder system for microengineering. They have a bunch of number 5s that integrate very tightly and do a lot, much like the prototype does, where they pull the point of one set of turnouts right up against the frog of another. Now, I always did that long before the number 5 yard ladder system come along recently, like 20 years ago, 10 years ago, so a long time ago, many gray hairs ago. I used to take turnouts and cut them up. I have, early in my modeling, I would use turnout stock, but I would take, even today, if I used commercial turnouts, even if I used fast tracks, I would still cut them up quite a bit. I offset the rail joiners. So I cut one of the stock rails, the outside rail back. But you can cut the turnouts to get that coupling a lot tighter. Angle is a concern. If it's a true number 6, and the thing that decides the pitch of your yard ladder is that first turnout. Everything else after that, you are committed. So when that slip switch drops you off, if it drops you off at a 12-degree angle or whatever number 6 is, I think a number 6 is 12.25 degrees or something in that area. Somebody Google me and berate me for it, but it's something in that neighborhood. whatever that double slip drops you out at, you're stuck at that angle unless you do some manipulation. On a straight yard ladder, you're stuck unless you do some funky manipulation. But cutting the turnouts is, I mean, I would do that no matter what. If I had a standalone turnout right out on the middle of a big straight run of track, I would still cut the turnout a bit on the frog side to cut those gaps back a little bit, offset the rail joints.
This is one of the advantages if you're using Pico turnouts, because the Pico medium radius turnout is approximately the equivalent of a number 5. They call it a number 6, but the diverging route has a little bit of a curve to it, so they work fantastically in a yard ladder because they give you a little extra angle without putting the angle in the frog. But you could also, you could do a more complex ladder system there and work with your angle a little bit and get a little more length out of your tracks rather than just a straight ladder. That would help you some too.
Yeah, the slip thing a little more complicated. With those slip switches, you're very committed to how that slip switch lays out. And
that's true. Yeah, I wasn't.
Heck, for that, but I love double slips, and I get to use a single slip at my design. And I found some photos because I'm modeling a prototyping. I found some photos that showed what it looked like in the late 30s, and I'm recreating it to that track plan, and it uses a single slip, and I was super excited about getting to use that turnout because they're just gorgeous. They're railroad geeky, if that's an expression. And 3-ways, those things are just beautiful, but they're really difficult. And the prototype didn't use a lot. Going into Union Station or Penn Station in New York, I bet there's 50 of them. But out on an open mainline, slips are really rare. In our modeling, there's 2 cool things. One, they're unique and they look cool. So why not, use them? We like to model at least ever slightly unique. Nobody's ever taken a basement, to my knowledge, ever taken a basement, built a 400-foot main line, and never put a turnout in it. Just made it look like a straight run across Kansas or something. So we do the things that are unique and cool to look at, cool to operate and run. But slip switches have a lot of complexity and cost and concern. So you could drop the slips and just drop your yard ladder off that secondary track, and that'd give you a lot of control over the point or the yard ladder angle. But I have a suspicion you could fix that by modifying the turnouts some.
So. Oh, I have actually, I have it. If I get out a screen share for a second. Hold on. Yeah, I know. Hold on. There we go. All right. So, okay. All right. Going on a field trip. All right. So, I already have turntable put in. That was the first thing I did once I got the layout up. I have a 130-foot Walthers DCC turntable, so I'll be able to use it. Hopefully, I'll be able to use it with my NCE system, which I don't know why not, but that's what I'm using.
Yeah, no problem with it. They're spectacular turntables. I mean, especially being plastic, but for a modern, quote unquote modern, so not modern era, but as far as turntables are concerned, modern turntable in the late 20s on up through the life of turntables being constructed. The Walthers turntable is a spectacular recreation of how they were used. It's doggone good. Now, if you want to go back to other modelers who want to go back to an earlier era of modeling a turntable, Walthers would take a lot of modification cosmetically to make it look like an earlier era turntable.
And they have move back over here. They have not old ones, but they have smaller turntables that look not older, but just because they're smaller, they seem like they would be older because that would be prototypical. Because when it older, whether you go back the smaller the locomotives were, and which caused the turntables to be smaller. And as they got bigger, turntables got bigger. And that's why, and I kind of made a mistake with my track plan. I thought that it was a 130-foot turntable, and it was a 90. So I ran into some issues while cutting the hole, and I ran over a 2x4 with the saw.
That's the way, everybody who builds a layout. And one of the big benefits to the L-girder construction methodology, and Ralph's smiling on the inside that I'm talking about wood, but one of the benefits that Lou Sassy had in the plan for L-girder was that you could move a girder, because inevitably plan your heart out and you will end up with cross members where a tortoise needs to go or whatever it is. You will never plan to the caliber that you will not eliminate that. And L-girder gave you that flexibility. So does styrofoam, but
yeah. So I've always wanted like either like a big layout, which I have now, even though it's just a bunch of pink stuff. I've always wanted to have a turntable that was big enough to fit any engine that I ever desired to have on it. And
130 will do it, brother. 130,
yeah, 30. That's what I was kind of debating about whether or not the track plan was calling for 130 or not. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And I did. I just decided that I can fix the track plan later and make it work.
So what are you
What's your largest locomotive?
I model HO, and I'm modeling like a freelance HO or freelance Union Pacific kind of thing, where it's kind of like an era where like steam and diesel kind of like came together and was like actually worked instead of
transition era. That used to be super popular, and I'm really excited to see that you are modeling transition, because the modern era stuff has become incredibly popular. But all the years I was growing up and AC wide cabs were starting and SD40s were getting long in the tooth, everybody was modeling transition era. That was the thing did was steam and early diesel. But there's a big group of people still doing it. But a whole lot of people and a whole lot of the younger folks are not modeling the stuff they haven't seen before. And I never seen a steam locomotive in revenue service. But the first time I seen one alive under steam, alive out on an excursion, I was a modern modeler, diesel modeler too, until I see one under steam. Man, I fell in love with it. The thing is breathing. It's just spectacular.
Yeah. I always.
What was that, Bob? Sorry, buddy.
You know what?
What's your largest locomotive you plan on having?
I have a River Aussie big boy. That's all. It's just nope. It just decides to not work at all. So I'm gonna fix it one day when I know what I'm doing. But then I plan to have like Broadway Limited, Big Boy, a couple of Yellowstones, some of the big 4884 locomotives.
Oh, come on! You can't say Big Boy, Brownstone, and not mention the greats. I mean, the big steam locomotives, the Class Ys, and the NW, the Alligator Seat. I mean, that's what I love. The whole reason I model what I do is because of those super massive machines that were those valleys and articulateds. But
and I really regret not getting a Y6B. I mean, I almost had the opportunity to have one when Broadway Limited made theirs, but I didn't. But
it's not too late.
Yeah,
it's not too late.
Well, I mean, they're on eBay, but they're going $600, $700, $800, and it's just like, no thanks.
I found remind me after the show or something, and I'll put you in touch with a gentleman who eBays, but you can go straight to him. But a fellow up New Jersey, Johnny has worked with too. He's just a good fella. And he's found me quite a bit of the Broadway stuff. He'll shop for it. and I bought my Y6. I just got one so far. I need several. I got my Y6 with they were going for 580-ish around on eBay and stuff. I think he had a poster for 580, and I got that locomotive for just sub 500. 480, 490. And another one to look at too is in the same Y class is Lifelike Proto 2000 makes a doggone good Y3, and a lot of people use those. That's a good. I haven't bought one yet, but see them run, and it's a good looking locomotive.
Yeah,
you can still get cab forward, which is similar.
Yeah,
cab forward is one of those spectaculars too.
I really want the Intermountain cab forward because
I've got one
you have one
in N scale.
Oh,
you need a magnifying glass.
And normal scale. That's right.
Normal scale. That's usually oversized stuff.
Okay.
sure.
I just wish they had a Yellowstone in N scale, but no one makes one yet.
Is that right? That's a shame. And there's a lot of there's several people modeling the what B&O used the Yellowstone, right?
No, that would be Duluth DMR.
Duluth Trading.
Yeah.
Okay.
Duluth,
Yeah.
Minnesota mining.
Real quick, I want to interrupt because I kind of disappointed somebody just now, a little while ago.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. He was real heartbroken when I stopped the video. Let's see. Who was that? Greg G.
I'm not sure how the rest of that.
Huh?
So I'm not sure how the rest of us should take that.
Greg G. I'll tell you what I'll do. It's been a long time, but I'll put that up on my YouTube channel. And the YouTube channel is Southeast Rails. I think it is. I'll let Eddie go look for it real quick, make sure I'm right about my channel. It's been a while. But anyway, Greg, I'll stick it up there and you can watch it there at your leisure. So back to the program.
Well, I have to say, one of the worst mistakes I ever made was not buying the Broadway Limited Big Boy, their new one that came out like 4 or 5 months ago that everyone was like going crazy over. And I was like, I had the opportunity like 5 times and I still didn't do it. It's just like, now I come back and I'm like, Sam, what were you thinking? Like when you did that, like when you just walked by it and didn't do anything? Just, yeah. Actually, I gotta edit my name so people know who I am. There we go.
Yeah, you can sign up for a free room, and that way your name will stay the same. You just come in logged in, it'll automatically have your name there. Bob, you're going to have to put 2 more quarters in there for those things to move.
2 more? Oh, man. A lot of change.
Yeah, it's just Southeast Rails. Don't put the Johnny in front. That's bad when I gotta ask other people what's my channel name. There'll be no sound with that. It's going to be, you're kind of left to your imagination because, I guess I should go back through and do a voiceover on it.
That's scary. Some people's imaginations go to crazy places. So
yeah, he'll have to make like it's one of those early 1900 movies without the talkie. It's just the movie.
Or there's a YouTube channel called Bad Voiceovers. It does some hilarious stuff. Like they done Mark Zuckerberg's testimony in Congress the other day and done a bad voiceover with stupid comments. So what I have to do is once you post your video, is download it, do a bad voiceover of some foolishness.
Thank you.
That or some Charlie Chaplin like frantic movies or frantic music.
Yeah,
that'd be.
Well,
I found some change.
Got between the sofa cushions.
Are those all Dash 9s? Or Dash 8s?
These?
Yeah.
These would be Tier 4 Gevos.
Scale trades?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh man, boy, that's an awesome couch you got, brother.
They are extreme.
Did you get the scale train ones for free? The one that says scale trains, or did you pay for that?
I paid for that one.
Did you get it at a discount?
No.
Oh.
I did get the last one here as a review sample for a video. So,
okay.
I wish I could do that.
So they got me one for just to compare with my other ones, because one's an early version, the other one's a late version. And the only thing that's really different between them is the exhaust compartment. One's squared and the other one is angled.
Okay.
So basically about everything else is different or the same, really.
Sam Gregg is asking later down the road, do you plan on block detection?
Maybe. I'm gonna go look up what that is really quick.
It's the detection of particular sections of track for signaling purposes, or for a control panel, or for automated train operation. Those are kind of some of the reasons why you do block detection.
Oh, well, I do plan on having signals eventually. I don't know when I'm going to do that. I've got to get all my track working, which obviously, if you look behind me, I have not done. So got to do that. And then I plan on having signals and kind of controlling turnouts, but I'm going to see if I can do it all using my Pro Cab throttle.
Oh yeah, you tie them up to DCC with accessory decoders or the snails, which is tortoise with a decoder built in, or there's 1,000 ways to do that.
Before you get all your track work done, though, when you're still just laying, get those blocks cut for the sensors and for the signal modification. You don't want to be doing that coming back after you put the stuff down, put ballast or anything else.
If you know where they're going to go, but I wouldn't bother. I'd cut rail. Wouldn't bother me to cut rail anyway. It's a little easier to cut it without ballast in place, but it depends on how you're doing it. I mean, I use a saw so I get a straight cut, but if you use Dremel, you can do it anytime.
Yeah,
and soldering the wires.
Brian W. said that if you're going to do block detection, go ahead and start planning for it now. Setting the wiring up while you're laying your track makes life a lot easier.
It does, but there's a lot of things you need to know about how things are going to kind of transpire in the process to be able to plan your wiring schematic and the architecture for all that cabling. If you do the couple key things that everybody recommends, put a feeder on every section of rail, drop them through, don't solder the rail joiners because you don't need to. Drop a feeder on every section of rail, regardless of how short. For the most part, drop a feeder on every section of rail, drop it down to a bus, just the best common practices, and make sure your feeders are long enough. Make sure your feeders are 12, 14, 16 inches long. I wouldn't go a lot longer than that. So you have enough slack in there so you can go back and wrap them through the coil if and when you need to in the future. But it's pretty hard to plan for that. The best architecture for doing that's what I call sub-busing, where you have a bus under each block, and you come up with your feeders, and then off from that sub-bus, you go through your detector and down to your master bus. That makes it easier and cheaper. If you end up having to do it on every feeder, which is what I'm doing for a different reason, you have to buy a lot more detectors, like a massive lot more. And then you've got to use something like JMRI to combine all of those detectors into a single block. So doing the sub-buses is a better idea, but if you just tie them all to a bus, you can sort that out under the layout later. because it's going to be hard to figure that out day one. And you're probably a lot more excited about getting trains running than you are worried about the particulars of a signal system that may be a few years down the road.
Andy,
Yeah.
Brian's got a comment for you. Oh, excuse me. True, Andy, but Sam has time. From the looks of it, at least 30 years, more than most of us. LOL.
Oh, he's got a lot. The old adage bottlers, a lot of the bottlers would say is I've got at least one more layout in me, because I don't care how, go look at the great layouts. Many of those guys have tore out, like Alan McClellan built several versions of his after the version that he's so famous for. The version that he made famous in all the magazines and got us all thinking about operations and all that. There's several versions of that layout post that, at least one for sure. And Tony Custer, the Allegheny Midland, the one I grew up, falling in love with model railroading with that layout. He tore that out and built the nickel plate that he's building now. You got. I don't care how good you build a layout. Odds are you're going to want to either rebuild, build new, or do a massive amount of change in the life cycle of a layout.
Nah.
Right. I'm gonna be moving in 3.5, 4 years anyway. So what I wanted with this layout is to have perfect, if near perfect, if not perfect operation, and afterwards a crazy amount of attention to detail, because I'm still I'm learning as well with it. So I want this to be that one thing, because other than from on this channel, this live show, I haven't really seen anything that was really, really massive, that had attention to detail to where it would take an insanely amount of time for a 2-foot section.
Never happened.
So I just, with the detail chat, I keep forgetting what it's called. It's the completely blanking out right now. The chat that's the last time where I my brain exploded, where I was the chat where they had curtains in the windows and they had tables and chairs and everything, and it was you wouldn't be at an angle with a camera, you wouldn't be able to tell if it was real or fake. It was that good.
You could get really close. Photorealistic is really close to possible, taking it outside in the right lighting. The problem is doing photorealism on a layout, partly because of lighting and some other constraints. But I normally see layouts of one of a couple of different breeds. You see the guys who are operators. Not all, but a lot of them think of their layout as a risk game, a big role-playing game. And they don't want detail because people are going to break it. It won't hold up to the abuse of operation. That's one breed and class of operator. The other class of operators the other class of true layout builders, not just bottlers, but layout builders, is the kind of guys, I grew up with a guy, something King, and Ben King, and he built in his entire life, 50 years he worked on a layout that was 10 or 12 feet by 2 feet wide, his entire life. Everything was scratch built. It was absolutely spectacular. It was an operational switching layout, but it was largely about the photography for him. And then you've got a few guys like George Celios and some of those guys who have built spectacularly well-detailed layouts that are quite large, but they don't tend to be operated in a realistic way for a few reasons. What's ideal for operating is reachability, and what's ideal for spectacular scenery and everything is depth. Maybe that's part of it. We're getting better with these super high layouts that are at eye level or near, and I'm going for the same thing. I wanted a balance between an operatable railroad and a layout that was high fidelity. Is the term I like. We use fine scale a lot, but high fidelity.
George Celios's layout has gone from high definition to high definition operatable since the advent of DCC.
It is. It is.
No, seriously, he has operating sessions once a week.
Oh, really? That often? Well, there's a few things that there's some characteristics about his layout that would make it a slight bit hard to operate. I mean, he doesn't have a staging, so there's some issue. There's some operational things. Depends on what you mean by operation. If you mean run trains in an organized way with a dispatcher, that's not that hard to do. You could do that on the 4x8 layout with the passing siding. How quality of an operating station, how enjoyable that is questionable. If you mean operation in the way that you're trying to recreate train movements that are near prototypes operation, not pumping up brakes, but near. That requires a layout design with some characteristics, like staging. I can't imagine how you can operate a layout with road trains. Switching layouts different. With road trains, how do you do that in the absence of staging?
Andy, have you looked at any model railroad issues with his layout, anything above 2000? And have you watched any layout tours of his layout since?
Of George Celios? Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely, but that's what I'm saying is he doesn't have staging.
If I remember right, he added or extended, built a staging yard. It was in Model Railroad a couple years ago.
But I'll go back and get caught up on it. Listen, I feel like that people think I pick on George Celios because I picked on some of his track work a little bit sometimes. George Celios, the reason that he's such a good example is he's right at the top of my list of some of the most spectacular modeling that has ever been done in the history of the hobby. I mean, he is one of the very few, and I am a big fan of, like, Off the Load is my, model railroad, whatever.
Contemporary.
Contemporary. But I think that George Celios is the only modeler out there who embodies the John Allen of model railroading. He went for that. He built a Canyon that he's later since tore out and replaced because he was going after that John Allen look. And I think he's the only modeler singular, one modeler since, that has done John Allen service, if not just flat smoked him due to technology and technique advancement. But there's some characteristics about his layout. It is not a linear layout in any sense of the word. Forget these weird things like sincere design or directional purity or any of these things that obsessive people like me get kind of cranky about. Forget all of those particulars. It's still ultimately a very large and beautiful, but a very large loop. That's tricky.
I'll tell you what, we've coming up on about 50 minutes. You and Lloyd were having a good conversation before the show. If y'all want to hit on that for a little bit. About train car weight.
Sure, but first I gotta say to the Bob, I was wondering, does he put a magnifying glass in front of his lens so he can see his train?
Yeah. And that's how he operates with the magnifier on.
I do. Actually, I'm sitting here running the train and looking at my screen on the computer.
You do what it takes to see it. I get it, but yeah, me and Lloyd.
Ron's sitting over there going, now where did I put that daggone shotgun at?
Yeah. I tell you, all this in-scale abuse is rough.
All in good fun. I love to pick on in-scale, but I'll be the first to say I think the future of the hobby is in in-scale.
That's
probably not my future in the hobby in general.
That's because Chris is not here with his O-scale. That's why.
Hey.
Yeah.
We got O-scale represented here too, so and I would be an O-scaler. I mean, in heart, I'm an O-scaler. I fell in love with it when I got my first O-scale stuff, but the space and the money makes O-scale rather difficult.
Yeah,
I mean, when you're talking $3,000 a locomotive, 2,500-ish locomotive, and you need a 7-8 foot radius to turn it. Yeah, that gets to be rather difficult. Yeah. So we've had this conversation on here a few times, and I know we have, maybe not on the broadcast or on the syndicated show, but arguing over weight and the NMRA. And so anybody in the chat, please chime in and it's just a second. I'll go join that chat so I can make sure I follow it too, because I've been lazy tonight and haven't popped in there yet. NMRA's thought on weight. My argument in favor of more weight, which is like a lot more, which is not my concept, but Mike Confalone, and now people like Joe Fugate and some of the others are starting to move in this direction toward massive weight. And I'll lean in favor of thinking of the NMRA standard as the minimum recommendation. And depending on your circumstances, elaborating or extending that minimum standard. So me and Lloyd were talking about. So what's your plan on with regard to weight, Lloyd?
Well, I did a bit of research. First of all, if you go on the NMRA site, their norm is half an ounce per. We're having reverb here.
Yeah, no. Keep talking. I'll chase.
It said half an ounce for every inch plus 1. That's for HO scale.
Yeah.
Now, suppose when I'm also on the part of the NMRA YouTube site, and people were telling me that those norms were written long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
In a galaxy far, far away.
Exactly. Because, and then you've got people saying all your cars have to be weighed the same, because if you go around the bend, the lightest ones will kind of derail. There was a bunch of what can I say, arguments, and to be honest, I really don't know. And you were talking about having weights between, let's say, 6 ounce and 12 ounce, or 6 and 14.
Yep.
Wow.
So that kind of contradicts the argument where all your cars are supposed to be the same weight.
I don't like the weighed the same. I understand why they did it, especially for newer modelers, newer operators. You don't have to take anything into consideration to run your trade. If all your cars weigh based on weight or based on length, etc., they all track at a certain, to a certain degree. If your track work and everything else also, and wheels and stuff also meet the NMRA's standards, like wheels being RP25, which I don't like that standard at all, but it's a good minimum starting point to make sure everything worked well together. That was the biggest reason for the standards, was compatibility between brands. But weight gets you to a minimum place. And if you don't know a whole lot about how the prototype railroad operated, or how you want to operate yours to recreate that, having them weighted to that standard means you don't have to think about what's empty or loaded when you throw a train in reverse and head the other way. If you have empty cars or less heavy cars and heavier cars, you have to deal with the same thing the prototype deals with. And you've got to block cars depending on weight. You cannot push loads with empties, or the empties turn into aluminum foil.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing they were also saying, you just reminded me of something, is that today's cars are pretty much all, I mean, the couplers are very good, the wheels are very good, maybe compared to 15 years ago or 20 years ago when those standards came out. And most of the cars today are pretty much all weighed the same. Like right now,
thing is, they don't all weigh the same. That's where the argument breaks down, when you're adding more weight because you're making it longer. So if every car weighed the same, the longer car would weigh the same as a shorter car.
No, I'm talking about
that's not necessarily. Yeah, but you don't have all the same car in a
you're right.
Run up.
Yeah,
no, that's why they.
But
because see, right now what I'm doing is I'm weighing every single car. Okay, and I can tell you that most of them, let's say they're 5 1/4 inch long or 5 3/4 inch long, and see I've got some 78 grams, 80 grams, 93 grams, but then I'd say the newer cars are 104, 111, 113 grams, and they're the same size, and they're, in this case, they're all box cars. So, I mean, if they're the same type of box car, like, okay, you'll take the older ones where they're made out of wood, and now they're made out of steel. I don't know.
Yeah, there's some difference. The biggest difference in weight on a true prototype car was when they went from wood underframes to steel underframes. The car body on a box car, for example, sure, there's a weight difference. How substantial? I'd have to look at the information. But Ralph's point is duly noted. We're saying the same weight. Really, what we care about is that they respond to physics, or gravity, in this case, the same way. And based on the size of the car, altering that weight means that those cars will respond to gravity and to physics, to movement, in very similar ways, making the trade very predictable without any consideration for how that trade is blocked or the order in which the cars are put. I lean toward really heavy, and there are some constraints for that. But the biggest reason I think that the NMRA standard is as light as it is, in my opinion, is because of the power of motive, how much tractive effort that motive power had, that your locomotives had, say, 30 years ago. An Ather Blue Box, you know, you weren't going to pull 50 cars with an Ather Blue Box. I got a Y6B that almost pull it's a die cast for Broadway Limited. That Y6B from Broadway's die cast, man, that thing will pull a wall over. I mean, it's absurd.
There's also another consideration, is that today a lot of people are building radiuses of 30 inches, and then you were talking about 1824. So yeah, when you're running a curve, you could have a lot of derailments if you have different car weights.
And easements change the physics and the kinetic energy stuff absolutely tremendously. If there's nothing in the world that I would ever recommend, if there's anything I could recommend you do in your track design and planning, it's easements. And Ron done a spectacular video on easements. I'm a total fan of the way he put that together. I think easements are an absolutely essential thing to do on mainline, on train movement, on sidings, whatever, who cares. But when you're running a full train at anything close to track speed, easements are absolutely, just do them. There's every justification in the world for it. They make the cosmetics better. They make it track better. Give up the radius. Easements are just a must.
And another thing too is during operations, you guys could probably answer that. But when you're doing operations, I'm pretty sure you're not going to mix up empty cars and full cars. Usually you'll load, let's say, 5-6 cars going to one industry, but you're not going to mix them up, like one empty, one full, one empty, one full, one full, one empty. I don't think that's proper or prototypical operations.
Depends on how you break up the train and where those empty cars are going to.
Well, think about how the prototype and most of us modelers operate. So let's coal trades are kind of, and various other industrial trades have some different considerations here for how they're operated. But let's think about a local. Typically, a local, and the one that you're going to switch and operate a lot more, because pulling a train forward, the weight is a lot less of a concern, and the heavy weight does everything to improve the tracking of those cars. They just work better. Where the problem in disparity of weight comes in, really, where there's issue to deal with, is with the local, where you will say you got a 20-car train, and first 5 cars goes to this town, second 5 cars goes to this town, third to the next town. As you go through the line, that's how the prototype would have blocked the train. That's how you should block it. So you were working at first town off the first 5 cars. So let's say that in those 5 cars, a couple of those are empties being dropped off to some place to load them. But you're also going to so you're taking out some empties on the head of your train. You're also taking out loads that are going to that particular industries to be unloaded, and you may be picking up or pulling cars that are empty and or loaded. So you are going to get some disparity in the loads through the train. That's probably okay for a normal freight traffic, but coal and other industries, like you were talking about, concrete cars, they cannot be done that way. So you have to switch them. And there are coal trains, even on my layout, where they go out, drop 10 empties at a truck dump, and pick up 10 loads. So what they have to do is have the empties on the tail. So they will have to grab the loads at the front of the train, hook them together, pull all the way past that turnout, drop the caboose, and shove the empties off the tail of the train. So they will have to work off both sides of the train to satisfy that industry, so they can deal with the load empty disparity. So you got to take it into account when you're operating with heavy stuff.
All right, I got a comment from Steve Structures. It kind of goes back a little bit, but y'all kind of hot and heavy, so I let it go there. He said that he does follow the NMRA weight scale system, but I do overweight some cars depending on the operation of each car once the original weight is followed. Now, his other comment is sometimes it also seems to vary by where the weight is placed in the car, over the trucks, or how low the center of gravity is with the weight placement.
Absolutely. Placement, a critical thing it depending on the car. Now, you run into some issues with certain cars, and coal hoppers I don't weight that way because the prototype they weren't weighted that way, so I don't weight that way. And like a tank car, the best way, in my opinion, to weight a tank car is to if it doesn't come up, if it comes apart, great. If it doesn't come apart, like a lot of these really nice ones, like the Tangent tank cars that are so spectacular, the scale trains cars, I know the Tangents don't come apart. So you have to pop a little hole in the bottom, drill a little hole in the bottom of it, and stuff that sucker full of sand. Just fill it full of sand and seal it up and clean it up and paint over the bottom of it. Rust, weather it, rough it up a little bit, and you're set. But there's so many considerations with weight. My argument in favor of heavyweight takes into account so many things that Lloyd was saying, especially about why the NMRA set it the way it is. But I can tell you, take a set of cars that you like, a set of hoppers on your layout, and you should have a box of, everybody should have boxes of wheel weights or nuts or something that you use for weight. I like wheel weights pretty well. Take a cut of cars and weight it in MRA and drag it down the track on the best piece of track work on that, as good as it is. They're going to rock a little bit, bounce a little bit. So do they on the prototype, but they're kind of darty or whatever. They kind of dart around a little bit. Throw twice, double it up. So my coal hoppers are 13 ounces apiece. That's what I'm shooting for. 13 ounces, roughly, on a loaded 70-ton hopper. 13 ounces. And my single Y6B, at a percent and a half, my single Y6B can pull the 30-car trains that I'm going to be pulling at that weight. At a percent and a half grade. If we get on the helper district at 2.5%, it requires a helper. But that's a doggone lot of weight and a lot of cars to pull. But the biggest difference is, even on good track work, those cars will move around in a much more reasonable, realistic way. And the thing to consider that you're trying to recreate here is gravity and friction and those kind of physics principles don't scale. So all of our stuff is 187 scale. But if it was truly scaled down, your coal hopper should weigh 800 pounds or something in that neighborhood. It should be, really 800 pounds. And my styrofoam, Ralph would totally have me nailed on my layout design at that rate because my styrofoam wouldn't hold up to that. We should need still bench work if we were truly recreating prototype. So we have to fake it. And the right amount of weight and the right balance can recreate the effects that gravity and friction have on the prototype. And at the NMRA scale, my suggestion is that the gravity, friction, movement, kinetic energy, and all that stuff is not well recreated at that weight.
Railroad video. I just recently started adding weight to my O cars. It does make a nice difference in the physics.
Any amount of weight you do, mine is extreme. And again, this is not unique. I didn't come up with the thought. I just, Mike Confalo was talking about it. It seemed pretty logical. As I started playing with it, toying with it, I like the effects. Now I've read that, Joe Fugit is pretty much bought into that philosophy. There's a lot of people that are headed in the direction of believing that not just overweight, but fairly massive overweight. I'm over 2 times the NMRA standard.
Okay, so here's a recommendation. If you are going to overweight, and yes, a lot of the manufacturers have fairly good couplers on them, but if you're going to overrate, switch to metal couplers.
Oh, I would do that. I would
Get rid
say
of the
that
plastic ones because they open up on their own. They just stretch because of the extra weight.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would say that regardless.
There's a lot of things that you got to have: a good set of wheels, good set of couplers, I guess good radius.
And then
but all this,
Mike, and another thing to add to the disadvantages, and you guys, get your opinion on all this. But Mike Rose, who operates with Mike Confalone and writes for Modern Railroad Hobbyist, was commenting on Mike Confalone's weighting standards, and he said his fear was he has a side business putting decoders in locomotives and sound in locomotives and such, and he suggested that Mike Confalone would start burning up locomotives, something fierce with all that weight, and but the reality of that has not happened. He said, and what Mike C's argument is. When the train loses traction, it doesn't sit there and just burn into the motor. It starts slipping. It would do that regardless of the condition. The wheels will spin. So
Exactly.
depends on so many things. You can't do
That's when you employ a helper.
That's the ticket. And I fell in love with the idea of overweighting for a host of reasons. One, because I like the scale wheel sets that are really, really fine, and the weight helps that tracking. Just it's a necessity, honestly. But I wanted to have a helper. So there are trade-offs, but I would tell you need good wheel sets and good couplers. If you want to operate reliably and enjoyably and not derail, uncouple, et cetera, all the things that makes running a layout that doesn't run well so frustrating. You need matching couplers, in my opinion. I don't use KDs. I use a brand called Surgeon Engineering. But if you're going to use KDs, just use KDs, and to the best of your ability, try to use the same KDs. Who cares about shank length and stuff? But if you're going to use number 5s, it is in your best interest to use number 5s everywhere. I like the scale, semi-scale, better. But
all this came because we were talking about empty cars, full cars, and when you look at a car and it says lightweight 45,000 pounds. And capacity 131,000 pounds. So your car should be able to show a different weight instead of having all the same cars, all the cars the same weight.
Or empty and load. The better, I think, to get around the taxonomy of this or whatever, I think the characteristic that I care about in disparity of weight, in difference of weight, is I do not want my empty cars to weigh the same as my loads. So in box cars and stuff,
Jim. Please, go ahead.
Okay, in box cars and stuff, you just have to put more or less weight in it depending on how you want to recreate it. It's pretty hard to be able to remove it. The thing that I'm kind of in love with for dealing with this is just attaching the weight to the bottoms of my loads. I am playing with some other stuff. I ordered some stuff from Britain that's called Power Base, and it's a metal strip, stainless, or it's not stainless steel. It's a magnetically active steel or metal, and neodymium or magnets to put in your equipment. I think magnets are going to do a better job of recreating physics than just weight, but we'll see how that truly works out. Now, the company that sells that product, I ordered it from Britain, but it's been a couple weeks, but I haven't got it yet. But they do it for locomotives to improve tractive effort. I'm gonna take hard drives apart and buy neodymium magnets and see how well that scales in freight cars, but. Regardless, I just think they ought to stick to the track better. Weight is the easiest way to solve that problem. And the biggest thing you see running a layout that doesn't run well is the derailments and such. And that is so frustrating. You're operating on a layout, and that train derails, and you have more than a derailment or something at night. You need to do something to solve that problem, because that is not going to be enjoyable, and people are not going to come back and operate with you if every time they take a train from Omaha to New York, if it's going to derail on them in that process.
Short circuits.
Got a question
Worst
here.
thing ever.
Yeah. Got a question here for Ron. Have you done a video showing weighing cars? Also, do you use MT couplers and steel wheels?
I have not done a show on weighing cars. However, weighting cars, I think would be the way to say that. I've not. I thought about that. I've kind of got it in my queue to eventually do one, but I haven't done one. I do use steel wheels. I probably still have a few cars on my layout that have some plastic wheels, but I'm in the process of transitioning all of those. I use a couple of different couplers, despite what Andy just said. Micro trains most of the time, although the Atlas Magnamatic work really well with the micro trains, and so I tolerate those. I leave those alone. Athearn cars in N-scale use McHenrys, and I know HOers hate McHenrys, but in N-scale McHenrys work pretty good. So I'll use all three of those if they come. If I upgrade, I always upgrade to micro trains. But if it comes with the Magnamatic, or if it comes with the McHenry, I'll use it unless I have a problem with it. If I have a problem with it, I'll change it out.
Sure, and if it works, it works. I don't have anything against the brand of coupler. But
I know back in the day in HO, McHenrys were notorious for braking. I don't know if they've improved that. I don't do an HO anymore.
Still break.
Okay.
They're still break, and they're split. They're each side of it is on a separate piece of plastic. So the amount of deflection they can do is just too great. KD.
Well, they're built the same way in N-scale, but again, your physics, it's just smaller. It's even if it's weighted by standards, I've never had problems with one pulling apart, or I've never had one break in N-scale.
Are you using the NRA recommendation on weighting? Is that what it is?
Or pretty close. Yeah, that works pretty well on N-scale. It's hard to get much more than that, just because of the physics of keeping your locomotives sticking to the track. But
that's the problem in N-scale. Tractive effort would be a problem.
But you can't get much. You can't leave them much lighter either, because you talk about derailing. They're so light.
Yeah.
If they're anything below NMRA standards, that it takes nothing to blow one off the track.
Yeah. But N-scale's a little harder sometimes to even fit weight in without buying fairly expensive, very high density materials. Even some of that moldable lead that's high density, that stuff's not cheap. So
yeah, I've used some of that. If it's a car where I can hide it, I use fishing weights a lot. And if it's something where you can put it in and hide it permanently, fishing weights and just CA them in place.
BBs. That's right.
I got a jar of BBs around here somewhere too.
Some Talus.
I really like BBs in the bottom of coal gondolas.
Yeah,
I can stick them down there and weather them black, and even when it's empty, it doesn't look like there's BBs down there. It looks like there's little debris left in the bottom of the car. So
absolutely, and there's always a little bit in between. In my era where, everything's not rotary duct and there's hatches, there's piles of coal down in, at the bottom of the slope shields, or slope sheets. Little piles of coal and, some lead shot at the bottom of it works just fine. The moldable lead works well if you can't see up under the cars. At my layout height, I can't hide stuff. I can't hide weight under the car. So, flat cars are really light on my layout, quite light. There's no place to put weight.
Brian
There's
Douglas
one
said
manufacturer.
He uses the Pine Derby car weights in his in-scale rolling stock, as well as fishing weights.
Those are just the wheel weights.
That's exactly what they are.
That's what I thought. Just self-adhesive wheel weights. I've got a massive box of those things. At 12, 13 ounces a car, that right there. At 12 or 13 ounces a car, I have gone through some of the weights, and I need to get more. But for box cars and putting the weight in the load or on the bottom of the false load, That's the ticket, man. That's dirt cheap. And
you go to a tire shop and you can buy these at half the price you pay Woodland Scenics.
oh yeah, oh forget about it. And you can buy a big old box. I mean, I bought like 40 pounds of it or something like that. I got a shoe box size of those.
They're meant for mag wheels because they have that self-sticking tape on the back of it.
Yep. Boy, that make your life so much easier. And like a box car, I'll put 2 full strips or 3 full strips in there and stack them up over the trucks. But don't just put them over the trucks. The car needs density through it. I concentrate weight over the trucks, but it needs to have density.
The important thing is to get it as low as you can. I mean, you don't want it stuck up underneath the roof of a box car or some crazy thing like that. You're going to have a problem. But as long as you get a low center of gravity, yeah, you want it spread through the car. There's one N-scale manufacturer, and I'm sitting here trying to remember which one it is, that to weight their open hoppers, coal hoppers, they put weights kind of similar to the ones that you're looking at there, your wheel weights. And they put them in the slope sheets in the ends. Now, they don't look good. But I keep thinking, if somebody would just go to the trouble of beveling those things and make them look like they actually fit in as part of the car, it's a brilliant way to weight, the inside of an empty coal car.
Well, Broadway puts. If I can get enough light there. Broadway puts the weights are there. And Broadway puts rivet detail on them. These cameras won't do it. They put rivet detail on them and everything, so they're fine. You can probably do that N-scale.
The ones I have in N-scale are just, they're not even beveled. They just sit in there and they look awful. But every time I see them, I think, this could have looked brilliant if somebody just take a little bit of time with it.
A little bit more effort.
A little bit of
That's
work.
what we always had. After Blue Box and stuff like that, always had the slope sheet pieces of metal, and they come in silver, and they rusted. Awful. But I painted them and filled, glued them in because they were just loose in there, and fill them in with some stuff to make them look better. What you got, Sam?
This, I guess it has fishing weights in it. I don't know how they got in there. This was from my uncle's railroad, but we're talking about weights in cars. So
the tanks are the hardest. I don't know which the hardest one is to solve, but actually a lot of these highly detailed cars, I mean even box cars, are center flow covered hoppers and stuff from like Tangent and Scale Trades and these kind of people that do this, exact rail. These very highly detailed cars that come ready to roll, basically. They're hard to get into. They're even that matter the KD box cars that have the brake wheel and armature that goes down to a piece of chain down the bottom and stuff. They're not the simplest thing in the world to get into, but
all you have to do is drill a hole just slightly bigger than a BB and fill it up with BBs and put a bunch of diluted white glue and close up the hole.
I like the idea of putting something like in a tank car. I like the idea of putting something like mineral oil or something that wouldn't, that wouldn't go stale, wouldn't, algify, etc. in there. Put, a mineral oil or something like that in a car. Seal it up and leave some looseness in it, so as you move it, the mineral oil.
Problem with that, Andy, is they're not a complete closed cylinder. There's usually a seam somewhere along the side or slightly under, up from the bottom.
They seamed it or at least put caps on the end of a tube. So how would you seal that? What if you filled it with a little polyurethane and swirled it around pretty good or something maybe? Could you get a seal on it that would make that work?
I don't know.
That's curious. I have to find, I have to buy me a handful of, scrappy kind of little cars somewhere next show or something I go to, tank cars, and see if I can find a way to sell it. Because I just like the idea. John Allen used to do a thing by putting a round weight, a heavy round weight in a box car with a moving load. It was somewhat of a trick car, and he would set people up with it in the operating station to have to deal with that car.
Oh, that, if I remember correctly, that was to test how you took off and braked.
Yep.
The rail, or it was a steel ball bearing,
Yep.
on a piece of N scale track that was slightly curved, and if it went too far, it would set off an alarm, and it had plexiglass sides,
Yeah.
so you could see it move.
All right.
Yeah.
Tell you what.
Pendulum.
Yeah,
And,
almost.
and with that, we're at an hour 21 now. So Brian Sones said Alpine makes moldable lead weight that you can add between the bracing under the car. It can also be painted.
If you can't look under the cars, that's okay. My layout being at eye level and much of it above eye level, I have a hard. But I've used that moldable lead before. It's not cheap, but it does solve some of the problems, and you can stuff it between the cedar beams on, say, a flat car or something. That would work.
Yeah. Ron just joined us from Australia. Hey, Ron. Bye, Ron. Why don't you come into the after show chat room and jump into the conversation with us? We haven't seen you in a while. What was that, Josh?
Yeah, I use that moldable lead to do steel slabs on my flat cars, and then I painted them so they're felt.
Yeah. Okay.
And I also do for my box cars. I weigh them down with railroad spikes, and the hopper cars are a mix of BBs and coal dust painted put over it. Like it's like a little bit left in the car, and some weights. Could be other weights too.
Alrighty, well, I'll tell you what, it's getting late and people are kind of jumping out. It is getting late. Still got to work tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have school.
Evidently, Josh doesn't
Neither do
either.
I.
It's a Friday.
Evidently, Josh doesn't either since he's still here. Or either he kept the lights off so his mother wouldn't know he was in the train room.
No, I still have school tomorrow. Actually, I'm on a field trip all day tomorrow. So.
All right.
Mary Poppins. We're going to the play, Mary Poppins. Spoonful of sugar with the mess.
All right, Josh.
I love Mary Poppins.
Josh, you know, you should have stayed in those singing classes.
I'm in class, so I can do that.
All right, with
Wow,
that
the
said.
detail on that's amazing there, Josh.
Yeah.
Can't see anything. It's black.
Exactly.
I think it's a double-decker bus.
Well, I'm gonna have to take your word for it because it's black. It's just a shadow.
Josh, you don't have enough light on it. We cannot see it. It looks black.
Looks like a tour bus. There you go.
Oh, okay.
It is a tour bus.
Yeah. All righty. With that said, I think, we're going to wind this one on down. Put it in the can.
Oh, we seriously broke into song, so I appreciate that, Johnny.
Yeah.
So, the after show is like after this.
Yeah, hang on. Just stay right where you at, Sam, and we'll straighten you out.
All right.
We'll keep you in the right road.
All right.
All righty. With that said, let's go to YouTubeMobileBuilders.com. There we can check on the show schedules for Tuesday and Wednesday. Those shows start at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Thursday show, as you know, is at 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Eastern Time. Next month, May the 2nd. Yeah, May the 2nd. Got an Arduino show with Chris. That'll be next Wednesday night. And then the week after that is the Fine Scale build, which is going to be May the 8th. So both of those shows are at 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. And like it says here in the advertisement, your source for free mall railroading resources. So come join us. If you miss a show, don't worry, they're recorded. You can find the shows on the YouTube under YouTube Mall Builders. We have playlists. Y'all have a good night, and we'll see you next week for the Arduino show. Have a good one.